So, hello. And if you're watching this later, this is our beginning of our Pallas Athena. So, you're very welcome to come and join in on Soul Tribe online and be part of the conversation here. So, this is our second goddess asteroid, Pallas Athena, and we're going to spend the whole month with her. And I'm very excited about that because I have a very strong in my chart. So a lot of what I'll share today is from my own kind of experience of her. So what I'm going to do is do a bit of sharing and then we'll switch off the recording and anyone else who wants to share at this stage can. And then in next week, we'll be contemplating the shadow of our Pallas Athena, then the gift, and then the city. So you can find your Pallas Athena at www.taraka.io, which is Kim Gould's website, and that will give you where she is in the zodiac, which sign of the zodiac she's in, and the degree. And it'll also give you in the first column your personality, Pallas Athena, i.e., when you were born. This is where Pallas Athena was. And then also what's called your design Pallas Athena, which is a more unconscious Pallas Athena behind, you might say she's kind of behind your conscious one. And so it's better to start with the conscious one if you haven't gone down this line before, or just follow your intuition, which one you may want to follow, or they may start weaving into each other as well. So there's no right or wrong on that. And you can share whichever one you want when you come, or you can just share your responses to this information about Pallas Athena. So Pallas Athena is the warrior goddess. She's a new esoteric ruler of Libra, and she is a double-edged sword, really, or a two-pronged spear, you might call her, because she has like a really dark, quite dark side as far as the feminine goes. And then she also has a light side as well. So, so where to begin? Well, let's begin with Ceres because she's the first one. And Ceres, if you remember, was discovered by Piazzi, who was outside of what a group of astronomers who called themselves the Celestial Police. And they were trying to find these asteroids, and they didn't find the first one. Piazzi, who was a monk astronomer in Sicily, found Ceres, and so he began the naming as well as Greek goddesses or Roman goddesses. Actually, Ceres is. Um, and Ceres represents a break with the patriarchy. You know, she is like, she's had enough. Her daughter has been kidnapped, and she's like, screw you, I'm leaving Mount Olympus. And off she goes on this journey, which is a very desperate journey, actually. You know, she's like wearing rags and she's poverty stricken. But eventually she does find Persephone and finds out that Zeus and Pluto have made this kind of pact, that Persephone would be Pluto Hades' wife, but no one spoke to them about it. So they were a bit pissed off about it. So then, on the other hand, the second one who comes along, Pallas Athena, is discovered by the celestial police. And I think that's always interesting because as an archetype, she is the one who wants to live on Mount Olympus. You know, she is she is on the side of the patriarchy. So if we think of someone, say, like Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister of Britain, who was a woman, but she wasn't the slightest bit interested in women's rights, making things better for women at all. What she wanted to do was be the leader of a very male-orientated Tory party. It's a bit different to how it was back in those days. But really, what Pallas Athena as an archetype wants is to be in there with the boys, being the powerful one. And and I certainly relate to this archetype from childhood because yeah, I was really scathing of my mother in my early life. You know, my mother did some job, she was a secretary and whatever, but she wanted to have children, she looked after the home, and so she was a very traditional housewife. Now, to me, I was absolutely scathing about this, you know, what a waste of a life to do that. And I wanted to be with the boys. Often, if you have Pallas Athena in your chart strong, you will favor your father. You know, you want your father's favor, not your mother's favor. Um, so that was, and I think I read about that first in Demeter George's book, like years and years ago. And I was like, oh my God, this is like really accurate. So what happened through my life though is maybe in my like late 20s, I met some older women and I started going to women's groups. And from there, the whole world of the goddess opened up to me. And and I would never have thought in my younger years, I was such a tomboy. I wouldn't wear dress. I hated pink. I would never have thought I would be the one getting into the goddess and really having to learn to honor in myself the feminine and the mother. Um, and yeah, that's been quite a journey, really. Um, and yeah, so just learning how to honor the mother energy may be something that if you have more Pallas Athena than mother goddess, then you know this accounts for really two types of women in a way we see in the world, women who are more kind of androgynous and like to hang out with men and do men's stuff um and then women who you know were the little girls at school who like wearing pink and going to ballet and had dolls. Like my mom really tried to get me to be one of those little girls and I was like having none of it. So 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 I always think these archetypes are very strong in us, even though we may not recognize them. Okay, so who is Pallas Athena? I mean, she has many sides, and some parts of her story I'm really uncomfortable with. You know, having said I kind of resonate with her, I align with her in many ways. In other ways, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe like this happened, like the rape of Medusa. Another really difficult one is this contest of weaving she had with Ariadne. Anyway, I'm going to come to a few of the mythical stories afterwards, but um, yeah, let's have a look first of all what she stands for. So first of all, she's a goddess of wisdom, and her mother. A lot of people don't know that she had a mother, but her mother's called Metis, which means thought. And Metis is one of Zeus's conquests. He has many female conquests, and he takes Metis into himself so that she can't conceive or give birth. But she does actually conceive straight away with Pallas Athena. And then Pallas Athena is born through Metis's intervention as she makes loud sounds, gives Zeus a smashing headache, and I think it's Hephaestus who cuts his head, and Pallas Athena's born like fully formed adult with all her arms, her spear, and everything from her father's head. So it's a very interesting metaphor because here we have female creativity that's born of having children through the womb. And I think I don't think, yeah, only one of us here is actually a biological mother. So we are all Pallas Athenas from our mind. We are birthing through our mind creatively. And this is something really that females have only been able to practice. Elysian Ceres was discovered in 1801. The opportunities for women to be creative in the 1800s were few and far between. There was hardly any woman doing stuff like that. But then, now we have artists, we have philosophers, we have writers, and all of this is Pallas Athena birthing through the mind. So it's an important bit of her mythology, her archetype, that, if we want to birth a book or whatever, then Pallas Athena is the one to draw on, because also she's our inner masculine. So she helps us kind of take the action that's needed to bring things into form. And I know for myself that is a real stumbling block, to get from there to there. Yeah, last week we were talking about a sleigh without snow. That about describes it really for me. So yeah, I'm interested to see where my Sabian symbols are for Pallas Athena may help me out on that one. Okay, so she's a goddess of wisdom, and wisdom is associated with the mind. So she has this association with the mind. She's also associated with warfare. So she's very strategic and, engaged in how to get things done efficiently. And I'm going to write this book in the chat, but I'll show it to you. This is a book I've had a couple of years now, and I really recommend it if you want to get in touch with your Pallas Athena. It's called The Vital Spark: Reclaim Your Outlaw Energies and Find Your Feminine Fire. And it's by someone called Lisa Marciano. She's got some podcasts as well. But basically, Lisa Marciano is talking about qualities like cunning and ruthlessness that have become real kind of like, oh, if we're nice ladies, we're not cunning or ruthless. But actually, I found the book really useful. And it's kind of like, yeah, these qualities are sometimes needed to be ruthless. I mean, if we're going to make a difference in this world, we're going to have to be ruthless. We can't just lie down and, let whoever step all over us. So Pallas Athena kind of really helps with, that feeling of assertiveness and self-confidence. And wherever Pallas Athena is in your chart, then, you can look at that sign, for example, and you can draw on that sign in order to activate your own Pallas Athena, or the gene key is even more specific if you know what gene key she is in. Okay, so then a further Pallas Athena thing is crafts and writing and art. So she's a really good one to call on, and this birthing from the mind idea. Um, and in many ways, she's actually very similar to the British goddess Bridget or Brigantia, who has the same thing like warfare and crafts. Like, where do these things meet, warfare and crafts? But I read something, and again, it might have been Demeter George, who said, human beings, we need to channel our ambition and our competitiveness. So if we don't channel that at a higher frequency, we end up going to war. Whereas if we channel our competitiveness through um, through the arts, we try and be the best potter or we try and be the best writer, then that's actually a positive channel for this competitive energy rather than kind of fighting. So I really like that idea. And so there's this idea with her as well that we really do our best. Our best work is to do with like an inner push. So rather than sort of competing in a negative way, like say you meet someone like Pam Gregory, she's one for all astrologers, right? Because we'd all love her following, and or maybe we wouldn't actually if it came down to it, it might be more tricky than you think. But there's that kind of, oh gosh, look at Pam Gregory, isn't she great? And so rather than feeling like jealous or envious, is to think, okay, well, how could maybe I raise myself up? How could I raise my game a bit? How could I do better podcasts? How could, so one of the things I started doing is I bought myself a load of lovely scarves because she always looks so nice on her podcasts. And so rather than looking like I fell out of bed into this situation here, no, I've put on my nice scarf today. So that's a kind of, yeah, rather than envy being a negative thing, it becomes a positive thing. So other things about Pallas Athena, she's very unique, I think, among goddesses because she's not depicted as sexual or erotic. So any artworks you see of her, um, you'll not really see her with the boobs out or like Aphrodite's there looking beautiful, whereas Athena's like got a spear and she's ready for battle. So she's interesting in that as well because she's challenging a kind of male perception of what is good in female. What's good is, this kind of either sexual female or this very domesticated one. And so she stands for something different, that what is good in female is, I am strategic, I am determined, I am a creative thinker. I can I can do better than anybody else. So she's kind of cool, I think, from that point of view, and quite countercultural as well. Um, she has often depicted in paintings nuda veritas, which is the naked truth. And she's a real bringer of freedom through the truth. So, she's not afraid to hold back Pallas Athena. She's like, here it is, And so she's a bit of a counterculture to, us being nice and not offending anyone. And, we can be too nice as females and find ourselves sort of being more kind of yeah, babe, the word fluffy comes to mind. And I think this is sort of the energy I really knew I disliked as a child, was this very kind of fluffy, female-y thing. But I can get into that myself now, and I'm not disrespecting it here because I realize actually all these things are inside myself. I have my own sensual Aphrodite as much as I have my Athena. And the whole point of this astrology is to try and own and integrate every single one of these different goddesses, and then we become whole, really. And Demeter George actually always said they were parts of the moon and Venus. So, if you could divide the moon and Venus into more specific archetypes, then these first four that we're doing would cover these. So it'd be Mother, Warrior Goddess, Pallas Athena, Juno, I call her the Sacred Lover, and Vesta, the Priestess. And there's more as well, but we focus on those for the time being. Okay, so I'll just share a couple of the stories of Pallas Athena. So this one with Medusa is really disturbing because it's really, you see her anti-female side, I think, or she can lack compassion. So Medusa is raped by Poseidon in Athena's temple. But Athena can't take revenge on Poseidon because he's a god. And so she takes revenge on Medusa. And so she's the one who turns Medusa's hair into snakes and gives her this lovely gift that any single thing she looks at turns to stone and dies. So we always hear about Medusa turning men to stone, but there's a wonderful book about a novel about Medusa by, I think it's by Natalie Hayes. And the first time Medusa turns something to stone, it's a bird. And then it's a scorpion, and she's really upset because anything she looks at, she's going to kill. And so she ends up living deep in the dark in her cave so that she won't kill things. So this really kind of horrible Medusa archetype is challenged by this novel in a really wonderful way. So the Medusa story, first of all, she takes revenge on Medusa. It's not Medusa's fault she got raped in the temple, but she blames Medusa and she says it's because she's vain. And Medusa was very beautiful before this awful event happened to her. So, so Medusa is treated really unjustly by Pallas Athena, and and that's an uncomfortable kind of part of her. And but it's one that I feel is there in in all of us and in the world, that women can be really shit to other women, and it hurts when women are horrible to you. Um, and you know, I don't know, do what happened in that story, blame you for something that's essentially maybe not your fault in the first place, and you get cast into the underworld as Medusa did. So then Athena also helps Perseus then come along and cut her head off, as if that's not enough. you know? So, but what's kind of interesting is Perseus brings the head back. Perseus has to get a Gorgon's head to save his mother, basically. But he brings this Gorgon's head back, and Pallas Athena puts the Gorgon's head on her breastplate. So it does feel that in the end, she integrates in some way Medusa, the Gorgon, into her being. Um, and honors Medusa in the end through having her on her breastplate. I mean, that's my interpretation. Other people may see it as, just another further slur on poor Medusa to have to be on a breastplate. Um, there's quite a lot of stories. There's this competitiveness with Poseidon. So Poseidon and Athena have a competition to see who will be the ruler of Athens. And Athena wins that. She wins against a male powerful god. So this is how powerful she is. And she wins by planting the first olive tree on Athens. Neptune does something to do with horses. But anyway, the people are more impressed by Pallas Athena, so she becomes their patron goddess. Her animal is her owl. So you'll often see her with an owl on her shoulder. Um, there's another really interesting story about the war of the giants, the Titan gods. And I've become more interested in these Titan gods because they're the children of Gaia and they're much more earthy gods. So the gods of Mount Olympus seem to be much more mental gods and gods of our New World Order, whereas the Titan gods are these older kind of giant earthy, as I say, they're the children of Gaia. But Athena's really instrumental in destroying them. And there's a prophecy that a human will help destroy the giants. And this is Heracles is involved in the story. So by bringing Heracles to the battle, the prophecy is fulfilled. And the gods of Mount Olympus then take precedent over these older gods. But kind of getting into these older gods, so Medusa's actually a Titan. Um, they're much more kind of earthy and not as tricky in some way as the Olympian gods. The Olympian gods were really anti-human, most of them. Hephaestus, no, not Hephaestus. Who stole fire from the gods? His name's gone out of my head. Prometheus. So Prometheus is from the old gods as well. And, there's a sense of wanting to help humankind and not destroy humankind. But anyway, it's a whole complicated story that we won't go into here today. So on the creative side, two interesting things is Athena's associated with weaving, and she has a competition with Arachne, who is the weaver, and Arachne has the hubris to suggest that she might be better than Pallas Athena. Well, Pallas Athena does not like that at all. And I can't remember exactly what happens to Arachne, but it's very unpleasant anyway. She's kind of, maybe she's turned into a spider, actually. That might be what her fate was. And the final thing I wanted to share is that when Pallas Athena meets the Gorgon, she's really interested in the sounds that the Gorgons make through their serpent hair. And she is credited with inventing the flute, which the first flutes were made from deer bones, and they are supposed to be the sound like the Gorgon heads of the serpents, which I love that. It's like, wow, Imagine going past the sea and the Gorgons are up in their cave and you hear the strange sound. Um, but you'd be really freaked out when you saw them, probably. All these birds making weird noises. Okay, so if you're watching this, you can look at various software to find your Pallas Athena, but I mentioned Taraka.io, which I'll put on the video link. Um, so next week we will meet and I'll do another presentation of whatever I feel like. Um, Pallas Athena, by the way, is in at 6 degrees Aquarius today. So she's an Aquarian Pallas Athena, and that's Gene Key 41, the start codon. So it feels like a really good time to work with Pallas Athena, and we can purify old coding and bring in the higher frequencies of Pallas Athena, which I think are this birthing from the mind, the creativity. That always feels to me her highest frequency, but also this ability to take charge of things, to have the strategic outlook, to be the warrior who stands up for whatever. Doesn't just hide their light under a bushel, because she's all about not, yeah, I think she helps us not hide our light potentially. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the recording now and read what you've all put in the notes. And yeah, anyone can pop in and share. So just share like overview today. And then next week share the shadow.